This is Connecting KC on Cascade TV. Please archive this show. You heard me say that on our very first program that featured young people and elders from Friendship Baptist Church after they had done a Black History program. So good was that introductory segment that we have a part 2, and this part should also be archived. We have an opportunity now to meet some of the young people you met before and those who were with them, and you will find out why it is that connecting KC, in this case generationally, is so important. And we're going to start with young people introducing themselves and also introducing what they did that was so exciting to us. We had to put it on Connecting KC.
I'm Jordan, and we did the 16th Street bombing. The Baptist Church in Birmingham, Alabama was constructed in 1911, and for generations of African Americans, it was the local point of the community in the 1950s and 60s. The church became the epic center for civil rights movement led by Martin Luther King Jr. and Reverend Ralph Abernathy. During the spring and summer of 1963, tensions had been mounting in Birmingham with the arrest of Dr. King in April and the Children's Crusade in May. As civil rights organizations worked on African American voter registration and school desegregation, there have been several bombings of African American property in the previous months, earning the city's nickname Bombingham. Alabama Governor George Wallace had recently smote tension with inflammatory rhetoric and a statement printed in the New York Times declaring that a sure way to stop segregation in Alabama was through the first-class funerals. On the morning of September 15, in 1963, a white man was seen placing a box at the 16th Street Baptist Church. Worshippers were finding their seats for the 11 o'clock service, and 5 young girls, Addie Mae Collins, Sarah Collins, Denise McNair, Carol Robinson, and Cynthia Wesley were in the downstairs restroom putting on their choir robes. At exactly 10:22 a.m., a bomb ripped through the church, blowing out all but one of the stained glass windows and several walls in the basement. As people led the smoke-filled church, several rushed to the blast site, where they found the muggle bodies of 4 girls. One 10-year-old, Sarah Collins, was alive, but she would lose sight in her right eye.
My name is Adeline Watkins, and I will also be doing the 16th Street Baptist Church bombing. Hours after the blast, the city was rocked with riots in several neighborhoods. Businesses were firebombed and looted. Governor Wallace sent 500 National Guardsmen and 300 state troopers to Birmingham. A number of protesters were arrested, and 2 more African American youths were killed in separate incidents. The next week, 8,000 mourners attended the funeral service of the 3 girls, and the 4th girl's family decided to hold a private ceremony, and an entire country grieved the loss.
Hi, I'm Shelly Brooks, and I'm doing the 16th Street Baptist Church bombing. Birmingham's white supremacist community was immediately suspected in the bombing. Quickly, the investigation centered around 4 men: Thomas Blankton Jr., Herman Cass, Robert Chambliss, and Bobby Cherry, all members of a splinter group of the Ku Klux Klan. Chambliss was arrested and charged with murder and possession of 122 sticks of dynamite without a permit. On October 8, 1963, he was found not guilty in state court of murder and received a fine of only $100 and a 6-month suspended sentence for having the dynamite. In 1971, the case was reopened, and Chambliss was convicted of murder in federal court and died in prison in 1985. The case was reopened several times more, and in 1997, Thomas Blankton and Bobby Frank Cherry were convicted and sentenced to prison. Cherry died in 2004. The 4th bomb suspect, Herman Frank Cash, died in 1994 before he could be brought to trial.
Even though justice came slowly for the 4 girls killed in a church bombing, the death was immediate and significant. Outrage over the deaths helped pass the Civil Rights Act of 1964 and the Voting Rights Act of 1965. The impact of the bombing proved to be the exact opposite of what the perpetrators intended.
Talk about connections. Today is April 28th, 2019, and on the news just recently, we have heard of more than one occasion upon which places of worship have been bombed. Talk about connections. We thank God for these young people, and we thank Pastor the Reverend James A. Terrence Jr. for the kinds of programs at Friendship Baptist Church that bring relevance to our young people. Among those young people are those with us this afternoon who will continue in their presentations, about which Melba Curls and Reverend John Shields spoke on part 1. Let us continue now with part 2.
Hi, I'm Brian Humphrey, and I'll be talking about the Greensboro 4. Despite the Brown versus Board of Education decision, desegregation in the South came slowly and painfully, and young African Americans were keenly aware of the hypocrisy. In 1960, 4 African American students, Ezra Blair Jr., Frankie McCain, David Richmond, and Joseph McNeil, were attending North Carolina Agricultural and Technical College. They spent many evenings together, becoming very close friends and discussing current events and their place as African Americans in a separate but equal society. They had been influenced by the nonviolent protest techniques of India's Mahatma Gandhi and the early freedom rides in the Deep South, organized by the Congress for Racial Equality. All 4 had been shaken by the murder of Emmett Till.
Hello, my name's Xavier Byers. Wearing their best clothes, all 4 students walked into the F.W. Woolworth store in Greensboro, North Carolina on February 1st, 1960. After purchasing some merchandise, they sat at the whites-only lunch counter and requested service, which they were denied. They politely requested service and again were denied, this time by the manager who had told them to leave. And again they refused. By this time, the police had arrived, as did the media. Unable to take any action because there was no provocation, the police could not make an arrest. Customers at the store were dumbfounded by the situation, but did nothing. All 4 students sat at the table, unserved, until the store closed. They would be back.
My name is Langston Humphrey. Though all 4 students recognized that some strides had been made in desegregating the South, integration was not universal. Most businesses were privately owned and was not subject to federal laws that banned segregation. When one student was denied service at a lunch counter, all 4 of them carefully devised a plan to take action and encourage a change. These students showed fortitude in the face of adversity.
Hello, my name is Richard Burton, and I will be talking about the sit-in at Woolworth. By February 5th, hundreds of students had joined the sit-in at Woolworth, paralyzing lunch counter businesses. Intense media coverage on television and in newspapers showed the protesters stoically facing abuse and threats from white customers. The sit-in sparked a nationwide movement on college campuses and in cities, bringing attention to the struggles of civil rights. By the end of 1960, privately owned businesses, restaurants, and lunch counters had desegregated their facilities without court action or legislation. The sit-in proved to be one of the most effective movements of the civil rights movement.
Once again, connecting KC on Cascade TV, you have heard what inspired our very first show, and that was those presentations made by the young people at Friendship Baptist Church about Black history. Now you've heard their formal presentations. Now I want them to give their opinions as it relates to 60 years later. They're talking about a civil rights movement well before they were born. And my question to those who care to answer this question is, how do you now feel 60 years later about the civil rights movement 60 years ago?
Our schools should be allowed to teach us more about our civil rights instead of being what we can't even be taught it. Instead of talking about Dr. Martin Luther King or Rosa Parks or Ruby Bridges, talk more about Malcolm X and the Greensboro 4 and the 16th church bombing, so people can understand what it was like to go through the things that they went through back then.
You know, even though the civil rights movement was like 60 years ago, I still ask myself, would I fight? Would I fight today? And my answer to that would be, I probably would, because I see a lot of bad things on the news where police brutality is still continuing on and still going on, And that makes me so mad and so angry, and I just want to, put that out there and stop that, because what's the point of it? It's not helping any of us, to see that, especially as, young black men, you guys are growing up and you guys are a target. So, I would definitely do something now to stop that.
Racism back then was to a much greater degree in some aspects, but at the same time, the same things are still happening today. But it's good that we're making improvements, and that's the most important part.
It's been 60 years since that happened, and we only get one day to celebrate it. And on that day we get to celebrate it, we don't really talk about it in class. We talk about math. I don't like talking about math. I want to talk about what happened back then. We only get one day, and it matters because we're black, and our lives matter too.
I feel like civil rights impacted us today because it showed us how our people were able to take a stand, and they can lead by example of showing what we can do today whenever we come across what they did. Of course, it's not the same extent of what they went through and everything, but when we come across dealing with racism in our days, you can think about what the people back then used to be doing and how they peacefully assembled most of the time and didn't decide to use violence most of the time, and it still had an impactful impact on improving our society and fighting racism.
I feel like just back then, kind of like what everybody else has said, like the same thing is kind of still happening. Today, the things that we've talked about in our speeches, not everything, but some things are still happening today than back then. Even though we have improved, some things are still happening.
This is so good. I indicated to you that Connecting KC on Cascade TV comes through the CEO, Carlos Nelson. Why? Connecting KC. And he has a very important question for the young people, and this then speaks to connections. This is what we are all about. And here's the connection that we would like to have our young people treat with this question. We think in terms of the importance of Black history. We don't mind going back 60 years. I'm 77 years old. But what we would like to do now is make the connection between then and now. What we thought was so important then may not have the same importance now. I want the young people, in their own words, to help us to understand what is important to you today. It may be that. It may be something else, but this is your personal reflection about 2019 and the years to come. What is important to you now?
Two things that are important to me are my family and playing drums. And not just playing drums, but just music in general. Music is very important to me. Like, I basically can't live without it. It makes me feel at home. My family also makes me feel at home, if you know what I mean.
I know some things that are important to me today are family, and I love being outside. I know a lot of people that things that are important to them are their electronics, which I like my computer a lot too, but I feel like the important things are really just my family. I love being outside because I get to play and I get to be active. Yeah, and when I'm outside, I'm usually with my brothers, and I love hanging out with them, and yeah.
Some things are important to me, like my trumpet. I play trumpet at school, and like I love playing trumpet, but I'm not gonna play it for like forever though. I'm gonna master trombone, like him, like someone who was talking before. I like music. I like to play music, and I play for my school band. My school is important too. My family's important. I like to hang around my family, especially at family dinners. I get to eat a lot. They cook good food. I also like to eat too. I like to eat a lot of things like pizza, fried chicken. Yeah. And something else that matters to me is living. I like to live and breathe and sleep. Yeah.
The most important things to me are my family, my academics and sports. My family is important to me because They support me through everything that I try to go through. Academics are important to me, so I'll be knowledgeable and I'll be able to have conversations like the ones that we're having today. And my sports are important for me to be because I'd like to be healthy and because that's just something I like to do. Another important thing for me is my community because I'm a part of my community and the issues that we have. And one of the most important issues I think is equality for everyone, whether it be racial equality, gender equality. I feel like everyone should all be equal, and that's one of the most important things and issues that we have to be able to get right before we're able to make the rest of the society better. So.
The most important things to me are my family, my friends, and of course my church. Most times I like to find a lot of security in all those aspects of my life because my family is always there for me no matter what, because of course we have the same blood and everything, and I came from my mom, so a lot of times they support me when nobody else was. I love my friends too, but probably my family a little bit more because I just have that better connection with them, and of course my church because they always manage to put a smile on my face even when I'm going through the roughest times ever.
The most important things to me are family, God, and education. You know, even if you want to be like a president or a basketball player or, you know, anything like in the industry, you have to know your stuff. You know, you have to start somewhere and then be able to read and be able to figure out things. So education is always important.
I think the things that are important to me are my rights, my education, and my church. What I mean by rights, I live in Johnson County, but I'm biracial, so growing up wanting me to know that, I want to know my rights and what I have and what I can do in the world and change instead of being taught what I'm taught at school. And then my church is important because everyone around me, I grew up with them, so I know them and they help me in anything I need help with, even if I'm feeling sad, like Shelby said. Even when I'm feeling down, everybody in my church knows how to put a smile on my face.
Once again, for Connecting KC on Cascade TV, my name is Carl Boyd, and as I said, please archive this show. A particular thank you for the young people from Friendship Baptist Church and the elders who have been represented. My prejudice is towards the church that I attend, Friendship Baptist Church, but I guarantee you that there are other faith communities doing great things with young people and old, and you will want to archive these shows. To tell you how, I want to turn it over to Carlos Nelson because there are more ways than just one to access Connecting KC on Cascade TV. So Carlos, as I sign off, my name is Carl Boyd, asking you to seize upon this singular opportunity to make a collective difference. Carlos, please tell us how we can connect on Cascade TV.